Good evening. My name's Liz Rowlingson. I'm an editor at Place in the Sun. I'm here to do one of our follow-ups for what happened next for our TV episodes. You might have just watched the episodes featuring Lisa and Rob Sargent. And this is a look at what happened next. I'm here with Andy Bridge, MD of Place in the Sun, and Lisa and Rob from Sheffield. How are you guys? Oh my gosh, there's a cat.
And a cat, sorry. Yeah, we're all good, thank you.
Is the bar open?
Good job you know it is a cat now, and rather than just some prop that I've got here for the camera.
Yeah, so basically, to recap, Lisa and Rob were shopping for a holiday home in their much-loved Lanzarote with a very healthy budget of £280,000, hoping to get 2 or 3 bedrooms for a home for sort of spend a portion of the lots of trips throughout the year. But guys, can you in your words tell us about how you started? Sort of, you've been to Lanzarote for many years. Can you tell us a bit about the background of how you ended up deciding you wanted to go from sort of lots of nice holidays to buying a property there?
Yeah, so we've been going for many years. It's probably around 30 years since I first went, actually, and sort of really loved the place from the outset. And then we went. We've got 2 kids, and we went out there with them when they were very young.
Probably about 15 years ago, I think.
Yeah, and just sort of fell in love with the place then, in terms of the holidays that we had and just the appeal of the place. Really, it's sort of a blend of really nice beaches, great restaurants and bars, activities for the kids, great all year round climate as well. We used to go out there a lot, sort of at the end of the year, October time, the holidays, and then in February as well, and still found the great weather, didn't we?
Yeah, and it's really relaxed environment, so great for younger kids, and then more recently as the kids have grown up, sort of visiting different parts of the island. It's not a massive on sort of nightclubs and things like that, but there's a lot of local bars and cocktail bars that obviously the kids are enjoying more now that they're in their adulthood.
But I mean, I've done a tour of the Canaries, but I've never been to Lanzarote. And did you explore the others, or did you just know that Lanzarote was the one for you?
Yeah, so we have sort of visited the Canary Islands for quite a lot of years. We visited Tenerife. We've been to Fuerteventura. We've been to Porto del Carmen in Playa Blanca a number of years ago, and then probably it'd be more than 15 years, probably 17 years when we went as a family to Playa Blanca. And it just blew every other holiday away that we'd been on because of the natural beauty of the island, the fact that you can just drive around to different places, and although it is sort of quite popular for holidaymakers, it's still very authentic and very Canarian in Playa Blanca, and we just fell in love with it straight away. I mean, every year we talk about let's try somewhere different for holidays, and still end up visiting Playa Blanca 3-4 times again, year after year.
Andy, because you've been to Lanzarote, haven't you?
Yes, yeah, many times actually, and I've visited. Been fortunate enough to visit all of the Canary Islands, including the lesser known ones. And I lived for a period in the late 80s, I lived in north of Tenerife in Santa Cruz, which is a wonderful city. But I think what Lisa and Rob are saying there is quite interesting, in that you do find people are particular advocates for a particular island in the Canaries. And for somebody who's not been to the Canaries, they might just think, oh, well, they're all a similar landmass in a similar area. Maybe they're all relatively similar, but in fact, they're not. They're unique, and nothing can be more unique than Lanzarote, which is absolutely stunning. I think the landscape leaves some people a little bit cold. I think there are those people who go there and think it looks barren, and the surface, like the surface of the moon, is a popular phrase used about Lanzarote, but I think it's absolutely stunning. There are a few places you go where a landscape is just so different to anything you've seen before or you're used to. It's a fascinating place.
I agree, and that's one of the things that we love as well, particularly when you see the contrasts and you see like the smaller villages. And obviously, one of the unique features of Lanzarote is the low set properties. You can't build above a certain height, and the fact that they're all whitewashed as well. So what you get, as you rightly said there, is this stunning, dramatic sort of backdrop of this volcanic island with the little pockets of white villages, and it looks incredible. Some of the views you get are fantastic.
And that is down predominantly to the vision of you can't have a chat about Lanzarote without talking about Cesar Manrique. So no. Cesar Manrique is was born about 100 years ago last year actually, and he was a contemporary of Dali and Miro, and a sculptor and a painter and a designer. But he was also got involved very early on in the planning of the resorts in Lanzarote, and it was his vision or his influence on the planning committee that meant it was concentrated in the three main areas and kept low rise, which really was visionary. And as Rob says, this white cube box type buildings are just really stunning. If there's a property looking towards the center, it tends to be green doors. If it's looking towards the sea, they're blue doors. And a lot of it is down to this guy who really made his mark on what is his home island. He was from the north of Lanzarote.
And at what point did you decide you wanted to buy there, guys? And what would you how did that? I think you put in an offer on a property even before you had any contact with Place in the Sun. Is that right, Rob?
So we went out, like I said, we were going out there quite a lot anyway, and we just felt that it would be a good investment and an opportunity for us to have a place of our own. We sort of moved around a lot in sort of the area in terms of different properties that we would rent, as we went on holiday and what have you, and just thought, why not start looking at this? And we sort of toyed with the idea of whether we got a smaller place that was just ours. And maybe more immediate family to go to, but then we thought that we started to go for sort of like with bigger sort of family groups and stay in some sort of bigger properties and had fantastic holidays, late nights out by the pool and barbecue and such like, and started to sort of think about it differently and wondered whether if we just spent a little more, we'd be able to get something bigger. And sort of rent it out at the moment as well, which would then sort of cover some of the difference, if you like, in terms of the cost we were going to spend initially. And we sort of drew more and more sort of attached to that idea. And we'd done sort of extensive research, looked around a few years ago, and found a place that we loved, and put an offer in on that. And it didn't work out in the end. Unfortunately, it needed a fair bit of work doing to it. Which would have sort of bumped the price up even more. We'd sort of gone to top end of budget. There were a few hidden costs, which we sort of learned from that, and that sort of we brought that into this approach here. And so it didn't work out, but that area that we looked at then was something that we sort of very much kept in mind and kept a very sort of close eye on.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the great position that you're in there in thinking about a property that you'll be able to rent out is that you're ideally placed, from your experience of renting out properties yourself, or from hiring properties, that exactly what people are looking for, and you can sort of go property hunting with that in mind as to what appeals to potential people who are going to rent your property out.
Absolutely. I mean, we're all unique, aren't we? But we feel like we've got a good grasp in terms of what we look for, and it'd be surprising. It's probably only this last year or so that you've really seen people start to develop their thinking in terms of how they market properties as well, both actually, on the websites that you can look at, but also when you arrive and that sort of initial experience. And people have not always been that great at it. And we always felt that we could do something a lot more in terms of making it a fantastic experience for people to go to, so that they would sort of go back again and again, or recommend it to friends and family themselves as well. So we thought there was a sort of a good opening and opportunity for us to do that.
So what were you looking for? Dartboard, tick, pool table, tick. Bar, tick.
Oh, that's right. Although interestingly, obviously, as we see on the show, there's not just that will float our boat, but it certainly wouldn't hurt to have space for that.
So what made you, how did you end up on the show?
Well, we'd always watched the show. I think, you know, if you love going on holiday and the fact that we'd look to buy properties abroad, you know, we record every show. We've seen, you know, some shows probably 10, 15 times on other channels. And I think, from memory, I think you applied to go on the show. I'm sure I never even knew in the first instance that Robert applied to go on the show. And he said that a lot of time had passed and then suddenly came out of the blue and happened very quickly. So it was quite exciting and being part of the show was really, really great.
Well, and also, I mean, I do, you know, I did and do a lot of research in terms of the areas and properties and such like, and always sort of having a look at what's available. But one of the things, as they say, we watch the show a lot. One of the things that strikes me about it is that invariably people on the show know the area, but they always seem to get surprised. And that's what I was looking for, because it got to this point where we were sort of so settled on a particular idea. And I thought, I just wonder if there are other things out there that we're missing. And obviously with the sort of the expert knowledge, if you like, that the research team have. And also just because some of the issues in terms of Brexit as well, and just navigating some of those potential pitfalls and just tap into the expertise of the show. It's not just about, you know, what you see there and then it's sort of, you know, the sort of the glossy package that finds its way onto the TV, but it is more behind the sort of the breadth of knowledge that the team have, both for the research of the area, but also in terms of the sort of purchasing pitfalls and advice as well.
Did you actually go to one of our property exhibitions and do a screen test, or did you just, no?
No, we didn't do the screen test. We went to the Birmingham exhibition, didn't we? We found that actually was sort of very heavily weighted towards Spain, sort of the properties in mainland. So there wasn't much in terms of Canaries at that point. So we didn't get a tremendous amount in terms of the properties, but there was some general sort of good advice that was available, more sort of around the sort of the purchasing and considerations for relocation as well.
Brilliant. Did you do any? So I mean, you were filming in January, is that right? You went out. Had you done any sort of? Had you lined up any sort of some legal advice, and had you sort of done any bits before going out in preparation?
So not so much in terms of legal advice. I mean, obviously we'd started the process and done a fair bit, you know, 2.5 years ago. But no, nothing particularly by way of sort of preparation for it. You know, we were sort of happy to go and sort of probe and ask questions to find out a little bit more information, and we got some great contacts from the show in terms of then the next stage for sort of you know, the legal process and such like, which was particularly beneficial.
Brilliant. And how was the filming? How did you find it? Was it nerve-wracking?
Not so much nerve-wracking. It was hard work. Long days, but the film crew were all amazing. Johnny was great. So when before the show, I always said Johnny was one of my favourite presenters, and it was Johnny, so that was good. So when we met them sort of the evening before the first filming, Johnny and all the film crew made it as easy as it possibly could be. It was good.
And it's brilliant to see the work that goes into it as well. And again, you know, maybe people do watch it on TV and sort of have a bit of an appreciation, if you like, of how it gets put together. But the work and the expertise in terms of making sure that, you know, every angle's covered and so on and so forth, and the property is really shown to its absolute max potential, because it's not easy, certainly when you go into certain places and the rooms are very small, and you've got to get the cameras set up, as well as you know, the ability for you to come in and have a conversation as well. So there's a tremendous amount of work that goes into it. So full credit to everyone involved.
Johnny's got boundless enthusiasm, as you well know. He's been doing it for many years now. Him and Jasmine, I think, hold the record for doing most episodes so far. But yeah, he's very knowledgeable. He's, as you may well know, he's a trained quantity surveyor. He brings a lot of knowledge to the game, and yeah, he's got that infectious personality. You know, I think he really enjoys seeing people who are really interested in making this dream come true. And as they often say, all the presenters, in fact, often say it's a privilege, you know, seeing people in that position who are achieving a live stream and securing an overseas property. It's a great thing to do.
Yeah, they stay in touch with a lot of them afterwards, and sort of and sort of keep in touch and find out it becomes quite a relationship over that few days. So you were on. So anyone that's seen the show will know that you put an offer in on. Was it the last property?
Yeah. So
tell us what happened. Tell us about that, and then what happened next.
Well, I think so we saw 5 properties. There was a couple that just were never going to be in the running, and I think when it came down to it, there was 2. So it was a bit of a split decision. So Rob's preference was property 3, and mine was absolutely property 5. So we the night before the decision time was was a late night discussing the pros and cons. Obviously we came down on my side and I won the vote, so it was property 5 that we were putting an offer in.
I think we sort of talk about it being sort of head and heart, and that's not to say it was a very sort of clinical decision. Property 5 was absolutely amazing. I think I've been really drawn in with some of the views and particularly the outside space in property 3, but actually the layout, the practicalities combined with actually just being a beautiful property, great location of property 5 is sort of what won the day. It was all on one level, which was great. Larger bedrooms, bathrooms, just the space that you had to live in. Whilst we were very focused on the outdoor space, and I think we got so I probably got so wedded to that thought that we sort of had to have a bit of a check and say, well, hold on a second, it's still a place that you need to live in as well, or we want to live in. And just some of the practical parts of property 3, just having 1 bathroom upstairs between 2 bedrooms, for example, just didn't work out really well. You start to imagine yourself living in it, or other people staying in it. And again, that holiday experience, you try and put yourself in other people's shoes. So we had, as Lisa said, a really long sort of talk and weighed up the pros and cons, but 5 just was the sort of the full package for us.
I think that's a good point, Liz. I think that's quite a a smart approach to take. You can, as you well know, people can get wedded to a particular characteristic or blown away by an initial pool or a terrace or a view, and then choose to look over the sins of the property itself. And the property might not be right, but they're just so taken with a particular aspect that they're kind of wedded to. And it sounds like Lisa and Rob, whilst knowing what they want, kind of arrived at that point through thinking, meticulously and smartly about, actually, there is that view over there, but how's the house going to work for us on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, you often see that in the people, the property hunters, and that's the skill of the presenters. They sort of they hone the process down, and they might end up buying something they hadn't really considered in terms of size or location or aspect. So it's interesting. So you put in an offer, you put in a lower offer, didn't you? And you had it agreed. Can you just remind us about that, and then what happened after the filming stopped?
Yeah, so we went back and forth a little in terms of the price, but we were very happy in the end. This was sort of above. It had gone into our sort of stretch budget. We were very keen still to keep it within budget, and felt that buyer's market and all that. So we sort of put some offers in and got a good deal on it. Like I say, it was again interesting. What you sort of see behind the scenes, obviously, is all of the various conversations. You've got the complexity of euro versus pound and conversions and so on and so forth. And again, the package that's aired is very neat and tidy, but there's complexities to work through. But we were very happy with the price and the offer. And so, you know, ended the show and what have you, and it was all done. And then we started to work through all of the process in terms of the you know, finalising the purchase of it. And we got a lawyer who got involved and was great and gave some fantastic advice. But one of the interesting things was that the property had the double garage was converted into the third bedroom. And so again, we were sort of, you know, aware of that had been done. But when it came to all of the legalities, one of the things that often happens in Lanzarote, maybe other Canary Islands as well, is that the paperwork's not quite in the order that you would get in the UK. That's just the way it is. And as long as you know that and understand that, and once you work through it, then generally that's fine. You know, the chances of any sort of comeback from that are you know, incredibly low. But it was just something that made us very nervous at the start. So we probably spent probably around about 6 weeks or so just sort of working through that, amongst other things, in terms of the surveys and all the stuff that goes hand in hand with buying a property anywhere. And but in the meantime, what we found was another property literally just about 3 doors away from that one, so on the same complex, was available. Again, you're on mailing lists and what have you, and it came through to us. And what it had in the third bedroom, it also had an ensuite in, so it was a 3-bedroom 3-bathroom, as opposed to the one we were buying, 3-bedroom 2-bathroom. So at the same time as sort of working through all of this, we said, well, look, let's just pop back out. I know it sounds easy, but let's go out for the weekend and let's have a look at this, because if that was the sort of the same price and it's got the third bathroom, then brilliant. So we popped out at the weekend. I saw it, absolutely loved it. Went back to the owner of the initial one just to see if there was any sort of any further movement in price, because obviously they do that at the same price, and there wasn't, which absolutely respected that. And decided to put an offer in on the one we'd just seen with the third bathroom. So put that in, got offer accepted, so it's exactly the same price. And we were sort of mid-March at this point, and we were just getting ready to pay the deposit. And obviously then we were just arranging when to go back out and do all of the, you know, the sort of the signed, sealed, delivered and all that sort of stuff. And then COVID really hit its peak. It was literally about three or 4 days before the first lockdown when we were out there and had looked at this property, and then obviously we're in the full throes of COVID, so we sort of put it on hold temporarily, and as you now know, fast forward in 9 months, that temporary position sort of became a lot more permanent for several months.
Gosh, yeah, there's a lot of people where I've interviewed have been in exactly the same position of you, and it's interesting that a few of them managed to proceed and for whatever reason and got their property throughout the lockdown, and others like you, perhaps more sort of said, right, we're going to take a rain check and just sort of wait and see what happens in light of what's happening. And so, do you know what's happened to that? Do you know if those properties are still available?
One of them is still available, yeah. The original one, I believe, is still available, and there are a couple of others that have come up on there as well. You know, they're all very much the same spec and what have you, so we keep a close eye on them. I mean, it was a difficult decision. For a start, it didn't seem it, because you're sort of going, well, we're putting on hold. But then, you know, at what point is it moving from hold to stopping the process? I mean, you could argue that it's always on hold until you get it. We haven't said, you know, we still are very, very much, we're ready to go. We are ready to buy as soon as the conditions are right. We said we wanted to go out there as much as we could ourselves, and we said that we'd love to rent it out to friends, family and other people. Clearly we were in a situation where neither of those things were realistic, and therefore to have, you know, what is, you know, all of our savings invested in a place that nobody can, you know, it's just going to sit empty effectively. Just seems, you know, madness to do that. As heartbreaking as it was to sort of to step back, if you like, from the process. But we've continued to look. We've looked at other options as well, things that we hadn't considered before. We looked at a property without its own private pool, but had space for a pool, because again, we just sort of wanted to challenge our own thinking to see if we were set on that. We saw 2 or 3 other places, really didn't like them. We saw one that we did like. So we're still very clear in terms of what we want. and if the conditions and price is right, then we're straight back into it.
With the users on our website, on aplaceinthesun.com, people looking for property, they generally fall into two camps. And one of those groups, one of those subsets, has been people who are looking to make a permanent move to Spain or France or Italy or wherever during 2020 and before the end of the transition period, because there's a view that if you acquire rights by being resident there, then you'll retain those rights once we leave the EU. And then there's a second group of people, obviously, like yourselves, who are looking to buy a holiday home. And if you're in a position where you're thinking you're going to offset some of those maintenance costs and running costs through renting out to friends and family, as you've outlined, then yeah, I can see why you'd put that on hold. And yeah, at what point does on hold become postponed, become cancelled? You're still obviously keen. I don't think this dream or this idea is going away, and you've got the funds, and you're obviously very meticulous when it comes to research and planning. So yeah, let's just hope we get the other side of this, and we can all move on in so many ways, but particularly for you with your Lanzarote dream.
Thank you. We're hopeful even more so. I mean, we fell in love with villa holidays many years ago, as we said before, and hopefully actually what, some good will come out of this situation is that many more people will start to experience that. I think as people move away from the sort of the packed pools around a hotel and the communal restaurants and such like, and all those sorts of things that people are probably a little nervous around, the fact that you can enjoy all of the benefits from being a family unit together, but in the fantastic weather, sitting out to till all hours in the evening with a cold drink and a barbecue going, people will start to explore villa holidays even more than they do at the moment. And I think the market is still going to be good next year for us.
I read some columnist in the paper over Christmas who was predicting that at the end of, when we do finally come out the other side of this pandemic, it's going to be like the end of the Prohibition era, and we're all going to go completely crazy, and there's going to be hedonistic parties and lifestyles going to take over as people just can finally get back to doing something in groups and having parties and stuff. But yeah, it seems a little way off at the moment, I have to say.
Yeah, so I read that, the Roaring Twenties or whatever, after the Spanish flu. So Rob, do you think that you've obviously been keeping a really close eye on them, on what's happening with your properties and the ones you want. What would you think this has affected prices? Have you any sense of that?
I think at the moment, my opinion, for whatever that is worth, I don't think that the natural value of properties is sort of diminished. I think what you're seeing in the market at the moment is that initial nervousness from owners. So I think there's people out there who are reliant on rental income. And it's been a tough year. If you think about, as we said there, and Andy described in terms of running costs, whilst they're not massive like they are in the UK, there's still cost involved, and people may have mortgages and what have you. So I think there's a nervousness there from lack of rental income. I think there's people who themselves can't get out and think, well, I might as well sell the place. And there's people who are thinking 1 year, 2 years from now, if you think about the crash of 2008 and how prices sort of reduced massively, I think there's people going, let's get out now before there's sort of 10-20% knocked off the price. So where you're seeing reductions, I think that's owner behavior and nervousness. Yeah. What I think you might see as sort of the next 6 months pan out, you might start to see a degradation in terms of value as well, as the market sort of steadies itself. So that's why we're just sort of keen to see where that sort of more natural position is. And like we say, we're in no rush. We're in a fantastic and privileged position in many ways. And we will just sort of take stock of it and pop out there whenever opportunity arises.
I think one of the most common questions we get emailed in is, our property price is going to drop. And of course, the truth is nobody ever knows. But I think your summary there is a very apt one. I agree that I don't think the underlying value of the property has dropped. I think what I always say about property prices is it always depends on the state of the vendor. So if somebody has to sell their house right now, then are you going to be able to get a deal if you walk in there as a cash buyer and haggle them down because they absolutely have to sell? Well, of course you are, because very few people can get out there, few people can view the property, few people are in a position where they want to buy right now. But does that mean the whole market has changed or collapsed, as you referenced in 2008? Now, that was vastly different. The liquidity in the market stopped. Everybody in the UK was worried about their their jobs and their domestic mortgage, and property prices then reflected a genuine drop in demand. I don't think the demand's there. I don't think the demand's dropped. I think the demand is there, and in some respects, I think it's even bottled up because there are other people like yourselves who are in that position where plans have gone on hold for an obvious reason this year, and they want to get going next year. Obviously, we work very closely with a lot of estate agents who list their properties for sale on our website, and yeah, they're getting plenty of inquiries. Our website's never had more traffic, never had more inquiries, but those people can't get out and buy. So there's that gap in the normal process, the normal chain. The interest is there, the properties are there, the agents are there, it's all in place. It's just people can't get out. And there have been a few people who bought off video tours and that sort of thing, but not many people are actually going to follow through and part with our hard-earned cash without actually getting out there. So yeah, let's just hope we can start traveling again soon, and people start getting inoculated, and we can get back going.
Yeah, that was a question actually I was going to ask you guys. Is there's been a lot of sales with virtual viewings, especially I've interviewed quite a few. It's not just sort of estate agents that are sort of promoting it. Would you know the properties in the area? Would you be tempted to do that or not? Just on the strength of it, if you had a walkthrough with an estate agent sort of videoing it?
So I would say not. I'm probably more attention to detail. So the property 5, we looked at another 2 properties that were similar sort of build, but then when you sort of see them in the flesh, a lot of the windows and doors need replacing, and bathrooms may look all right on a visual tour, but they may need replacing, and it all then starts adding to the cost. Property 3, for example, that we ruled out eventually, just little niddly things like some of the bathroom cabinets wouldn't open properly with the door fully in, and it's just little things like that you wouldn't pick up on a video. You'd need to be there, and I guess you don't. I personally, I wouldn't sort of feel the place just by looking at a video.
That's some really good points there, because you're right. You don't, even if your agent is trying to give you the best impression, it's those little details, and you're spending a lot of money. So yeah, you're not an investor it's just a property. It's your whole future. Yeah. So brilliant. That's any other tips before we go that anyone sitting at home wanting to sort of the pent-up demand that Andy referred to might want to get out next year, in the spring or whenever they can?
I mean, I still think that, like I say, villa holidays even more so are just going to be one of those things that people are drawn to. And for us, once we did it and tried it, we always sort of thought villa holidays were very sort of, expensive and more sort of luxurious end of it. The reality is, the properties that you can get and the experience you have within them are just incredible. So to have something that you can experience over and over again, or if you're investing to purchase for friends or for family as well, to experience that, I just encourage people to do it. I think it's a changing world that we live in, but people will still want holidays, people will still want family time, people will want to relax and enjoy each other's company, and what better way to do it? So we're still completely sold on this dream, and hopefully fulfill it sooner rather than later.
Can I just pick up on one point, Liz, that Rob mentioned earlier, which is currency and the importance of the exchange rate. And it's not just a plug for our own currency company, A Place in the Sun Currency, but do go and have a look at aplaceinthesuncurrency.com. But when you think that the pound versus the euro has been as high as 1.3 in the last, when was that, 3 years ago? And are down as low as parity, a 30% difference in the exchange rate. Planning when you're going to move your money and speaking to a specialist broker who can advise you. Again, the brokers don't necessarily know, but what they can do is you can forward fix a contract. So if you have to move £50,000 and the rate is pretty good today. You could fix that rate today up for 2 years in advance. So there are different mechanisms that one can use to mitigate the risk of being exposed to the currency rates, because if you set your budget at whatever it is, £280,000, then a relatively small swing can make a big difference.
It's a really good point.
Yeah.
We actually, without going into too much detail, we purchased because we got it, obviously the rate we felt was good at the start of the year, sort of 118-ish, and we purchased a big chunk, around half of it. We converted around half of it, and we did exactly that. And with the change in, I think it dropped to about 106 or something at one point. It did make around about £20,000 difference to the property.
Wow.
Because once we decided at that point that actually, you know, we sort of, we'd got all of that money then tied up and what have you, we then converted it back and obviously got a far more favourable rate. So actually some sort of small good came out of that situation in terms of making money, which is not advisable to try to make money on currency exchange, really. But every cloud and all that. But, you know, they exactly as your point there, we got a great rate, it was held at that. If we'd then gone ahead with it, obviously the benefits for us were massive in terms of timing it and holding that price.
You know an international money markets player, are you?
No, definitely not. That's a step too far for me.
I think if you get lucky like once, just quit. That's good going. You've done well.
I think so. Yeah.
The pound's gone up a bit now, hasn't it? That's good news.
Yeah.
Yes, it has. Yeah.
All right, well, that's really helpful. Well, I do hope you guys stay in touch and tell us, hopefully, that the positive. I'm very convinced you're going to end up buying. So, thank you very much for spending your time over Christmas talking to us. And I'm sure many of the readers will be really, listeners, viewers will be very keen to hear your advice and insights.
Well, we absolutely have to do a follow-up webinar from the barbecue poolside with a cold beer at whenever it is, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months down the line, and see what you got for your money. It'd be fantastic.
Absolutely.
Slightly better view than we've got now behind us. We'll make sure that's there. Yeah.
I think, Andy, you'll be fighting Johnny to do that gig.
Yeah, no, thank you for everyone again. It was a really fantastic experience. We couldn't got to the stage we did without the help and support of everyone on the Place in the Sun. So massive appreciation for all of that.
All right, thanks again, guys.
Thank you, guys. It's been fascinating.
Best.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thanks, Andy.